Good evening, everybody. Happy New Year. I think this is working.
It's a bit of an echo, but yeah.
Happy New Year. Hope everybody watching had a nice holiday season and vacation if you were on a break. We'll call the meeting to order at 7:04. This is the school committee meeting for January 3rd, 2024. Looking at the agenda, does anyone have any changes? Oh, sorry. Pledge allegiance to the flag first.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so now looking at the agenda, I was getting ahead of myself. Does anyone have any changes?
Yeah, I don't know if you were able to sign the warrant. If not, we can
I
remove
did.
that. Okay.
Yes. So we can keep it on then, right? Great. So first item on our agenda then will be citizen speak. We don't see anyone in the audience. Is there anyone online, Dr. Balichek?
No one has raised
Okay.
to raise their hands. But
If you've joined us online and are interested in participating in Citizen Speak, can you please raise your hand?
there are no hands raised.
All right, thank you. So we'll just go right into the superintendent's report.
Great. Every night right now, about this time, I've got like a frog in my throat for the past week. So if you hear me like squeaking at all, it's because that's going on here.
All
good. Not much has happened in terms of since we last met to now. We had a break. It was a great break, and we actually, I think, got a lot done in the central office during that break, working on our priority report, which is kind of the big work that's happening right now, along with a lot of the hiring that's going on. So we have made a lot of good progress on that. We have been meeting this week and kind of reviewing that, and we're still kind of slated, I think, for the end of this month to complete that and present it, and working again with Jackrabbit to put that into a kind of a finished document, which I think worked well with the entry plan. In terms of, I wanted to just maybe go right into my evaluation, if that is okay.
Sure.
Yeah. So shared the midterm evaluation form, and we didn't have a chance, the committee didn't have a chance prior to break to meet to talk about what that might look like. So I kind of just basically thought that using the form, that official form, was a good place to start in terms of talking about some of the things that I've done relative to each goal. So you can see under each goal I've got a bulleted list of activities that I've done. Wanted to maybe talk to you all about how you want to go about discussing this, talking about if you had questions. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, well, just in the context of the process for the year, this is our, I guess, just reminding anybody who would be watching, this is the second of 3 times that we'll be sort of discussing this process this year in an open meeting. We did that in the fall when you presented your goals. This is the really like formative check-in where we can touch base about the progress you've shared here and ask questions and sort of have like an informal discussion about it. And then in a couple of months is when we'll go through the formal evaluation process using this same tool. So I appreciate your having collected updates and evidence in this format. Seems very helpful, and hopefully everyone has had a chance to look over it. So I think that it does make sense to me if we just sort of see, do people have questions about things that you see here, observations. I think if it's okay for you, just have like a little bit of a dialogue.
Yep. And I think a lot of these things I've been updating you all on in superintendent updates and communications, et cetera. I think a lot of this also is articulated in the entry plan in terms of the kinds of things I was going to do. This has a little bit more detail.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, my thoughts are obviously the goals in general are very much data collection, relationship building, learning, right? All the things of you're kind of entering a new place to kind of build the foundational steps. And I think, as you said, you've updated us throughout on those. I think the things you've listed here align with things with which we have heard about, you've reported on, or we've actively participated in with you, and that seem to be connected to, again, these goals we discussed back in the fall. So I don't have any particular questions about any of these, but just appreciate all these efforts that you've gone through to, again, immerse yourself within the community, learn about the local context, understand the different players and constituencies that are within Milton, to really try and grab as broad an understanding of our system and the needs of the various stakeholders as possible. So really appreciate all that work that you've done thus far.
And just to add on to what Mark had just shared, you know, there's the work that you're doing around equity with the leadership team, the student advisory team, as well as the Milton Coalition. I hope that whether it's in your plan presentation for January or February, that you can share what some of those insights are, what the decisions are, so that it helps inform the decisions that you've made.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that work is going to be years long in terms of bringing students more centrally into, but I think it's both working with me and, you know, the work that I do with the advisory team, but also looking at our 6 schools and looking at how students are currently involved or not involved in decisions. I think there are a lot of structural things that we can look at to put students more in that space of being kind of collaborators in some ways in terms of their education as opposed to
Receivers. Oh, no, I completely
yeah.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
If anything, I'm getting at when you say that I'm understanding the root cause of data to inform. So it's like, well, what is the root cause? Like, if you have an opinion on something that ultimately has informed your plan, if you in the presentation you have are able to document some of those conclusions, that would be helpful.
Yeah. And I think those will be really important for the both staff and community to, you know, as we're building this picture of like where we are. I think oftentimes we don't really look at root cause enough. We kind of look at an issue and we try to solve the issue without looking at root cause, which is of course connected to the whole system. It's much more complex than people can often get their arms around. And so we tend to like put energy in one direction trying to kind of treat a symptom without really looking at the whole system. And I think that's, you know, ultimately the really, really important work that's happening in year 1, and it's going to be happening as we're in that implementation phase in the spring too, is helping people to both be part of that development and to be able to see the system. Because I think everyone has a different experience of MPS and has a different idea of what the moves are to get us from here to where they think we need to go. So I think that understanding piece is really important.
I agree.
One specific thing I wanted to just highlight under the first district improvement goal, which you know, involves a lot of the collaborative work with us as the school committee.
Yeah.
I just wanted to name that I know that, like, the way you framed that goal and the way we launched that work together beginning in the summer, it is a collaborative sort of process for us to work through that with you. And I think we got off to a really strong start with that in our summer retreat. I think for several valid reasons about, you know, that really are driven by, like,
You mean life?
the cadence of how things go during the school year. Like, we haven't been able to advance some of that work as concretely as I had hoped, as far as, like, the governance protocols and really establishing for ourselves as a school committee the clarity in terms of how we work together with the superintendent, et cetera. And I just wanted to say the timing for this feels helpful because it's like a little bit of a nudge. We have our next governance retreat happening on January 31st. And I am committing to, like, helping do some of the legwork, I think, between now and then to, like, pick up where we left off. Bev, you and Selena had done a really helpful job of identifying some ideas based on many examples that you had shared with us. So I think I'm going to work on compiling some of that and, like, moving it along so that we have something on the 31st to look at together, to respond to, and hopefully, like, iterate from there. Because, you know, I just continue to appreciate that you set that as a goal. I think it is really important for the impact that we can all have collectively, but it is not only up to you to, like, deliver on that work. We're going to do that together. So just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah, in my experience, I think it's kind of like flexing a muscle in terms of, like, doing that work one time is helpful, but continuing to kind of work together and kind of grow together as a team, I think is really, really important.
I just want to obviously echo what all of you have said. And I also just want to add that just seeing all the work that you've done since July 1 is just really impressive. Like, the amount of work helping us, you know, and building, like, improve our working relationship with each other and, you know, our relationship with you in such a short time. And all of these things, like, you know, I know we've had several initiatives over the last several years that we've kind of started and they've kind of just been in silos, as we've talked about many times, but really kind of seeing this and this legwork that you're doing right now is, I can just really see, like, the improvements will kind of just fall into place as we go through this process. So I really appreciate just being able to just, you know, just even seeing the list of everything that you've put in here, and it's like, it totally makes sense, like, taking the time to do this, really, which we haven't done before. And I think we've kind of suffered from that. I think all of us have, you know, different areas that we wanted to really, like, focus on when we ran on this for this committee in this position, right? And, like, things that we're passionate about, but we didn't really know how to make that happen necessarily. Like, you know, so this part, what you're bringing to this committee is just, it's huge and it's really impressive. And I've even noticed, just even in, like, the school updates that we receive, like, just little things, but it just goes a long way, and I'm starting to see that change. So even before your report comes out, like, just seeing those little changes, it's been really impressive. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Is it okay if I ask like a bigger picture question?
Yeah.
Because I'm just kind of curious. Like, so in terms of what this was like for you going through the process of compiling all of these updates for us, totally agree. It is impressive to kind of see it all in one place. Are there particular areas that you're kind of thinking about? And now you're like halfway through the year, basically. I know some of this might be driven not by like you and your performance so much as the time frame of entry and like change management. But are there any areas that you're focusing on or kind of looking to like especially focus on in the next few months, I guess, so that you're able to kind of bring them home, so to speak, by the final evaluation? Does that make sense?
Yeah. I guess I'm not thinking necessarily of the evaluation timeline as much as like what's required of the work, and thinking about the year, like you said.
Yeah.
I mentioned, I think, on our last meeting that we're going to take the next PD day, our final PD day, which is in March, and we're going to commit to using it for the purpose of engaging everybody in kind of talking about the future. So all staff coming together, probably similar to the first day of school, or for staff where we went to the auditorium. So it gives me an opportunity to present the priority report, to kind of, was that you or me?
That was me.
Okay. I
Like one too many
have that
devices.
same ringer. So.
I should have said it was you.
You should have just
Next
said it
time,
was
next
you.
time.
You should have just said it was you.
Anna, just turn off your phone.
But present a priority report and then really engage staff in talking through and thinking about and reflecting on the kind of findings and being able to have them be a part of the process of moving forward. And when you don't do that, you end up, the staff end up feeling like there's a top-down directive. They might agree with it, they might not, but if they're not a part of that in some way, you're missing out, And, I have found over the years that I have absolute clarity from the central office. I think I see everything, and then when I go and talk to people, I realize it's false clarity. It's really easy to think you know everything when you're kind of sitting back and looking at things. When you get into a building, when you get into a classroom, when you talk to teachers and administrators in the building, you see that it's much more complex than you thought it was kind of from the central office. So I think that is one of the challenges of the central office is you get a lot of like everybody thinking, okay, like, all of us sitting at the table really understand this. We do understand parts of it. We don't understand all of it.
That's the complexity of public education. I think if it was easy, someone would have solved it by now.
Exactly.
We wouldn't be having the tough discussions we have. But it's important to have someone with a vision that can say, I can see the forest through the trees, but I also can have the folks follow and want to be part of a team, but not always lead the team. I think that in terms of the relationships you've established with the faculty, it's a healthy foundation. And I think they're excited to see what your plan is, that they helped co-construct.
Exactly, yeah. And so I think like that's going to be, as I'm thinking about kind of our timing, I think that's going to be the next really big thing is that PD day, because we'll finish the report, share it. I'll be doing probably a lot of kind of school visits in between there and connecting with staff, and then having that. After that, I think we'll come away from that day, and it's not just going to be a presentation. It's going to be, in my thinking, it's going to be real engagement, and it's not going to be 600 staff members together. It's going to be breaking out into groups, teams, buildings. That part's I haven't designed yet, but I would really like to get concrete feedback from staff to get their perspective in terms of, if we're going to commit to 3 things next year, what are those things? And what does that mean? with the goal of building systems, understanding root cause, tackling equity, like the things that we care about that you all have put in the strategic plan. So that's I think,
Makes
to
a
answer
lot
your
of
question,
sense.
that's kind of right around the time of,
Yep.
of the final evaluation.
And then I know we'll learn more about this in the weeks to come, but your plan for also presenting it to the community, I mean, obviously you'll present it to the school committee. That's the formal sort of presentation to the community. But will there be opportunities for that type of processing and engagement too?
Yeah, I really appreciated the forums and having time to talk with community members and kind of calling them in. I think that was powerful. So I'm foreseeing doing that again in the spring.
Sounds good. Any other questions or thoughts regarding this evaluation? I mean,
I guess I would say that things wouldn't be going well if you all weren't doing well. So, thank you. It's very true too. Just, I am thankful. So thank you.
well, you're welcome. I mean, no,
Happy New Year.
Totally.
And I was actually just looking today. My kind of 1-year anniversary is Friday.
Oh.
yeah, you mean of
The offer
when
letter.
Yeah.
we
Congratulations.
hired you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The 7:30 Zoom call that you had.
Oh.
I know this.
I looked at
Really? When you got
Because
the
you're so
offer letter?
relaxed. This
Yeah, I looked at my email.
Last year,
and
the spring was a little busy.
It was a Friday, the Friday after New
It
Year's.
was a Friday. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yes.
7:30.
Right.
Life is a blur, isn't
Oh,
it?
it is a blur. It is a
It
blur.
was a whole year. Yeah.
Because your
Wow, that was a
interview
big
was
yawn.
like the Wednesday.
Well-
the Wednesday, the interview, the final one.
And it will
Yeah, it
be
was that week.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because you had the school
Yeah.
visits,
Yep.
then the interview,
right.
and then yes, it was the Friday morning. I remember that.
Yeah.
It will be a blur from here forward as far as this process too, because it's January. I think this will meet, as the evaluation subcommittee to just map out like how we will execute this next piece, but it will involve your further compilation of the evidence.
Yep.
And then the collection of input from the members, which I think would probably be beginning in March towards the April conversation. So I'm sure that will be here before we know it, but this is a helpful touch point, I think. And Dr. Miranda, I think, I don't want to speak for you, but tell me if this is not okay, but I'm assuming that as always, like any of us that have
Absolutely.
additional questions or input that we want to share, we can just be in contact with you, and she can do that if she has questions based on not being able to make it tonight for this part of the discussion. I'll just remind her that she can reach out to you.
Totally.
And if anything else comes up, any of us can, of course, do that as always.
Based upon the draft timeline we put together for the subcommittee for this, it was March 15th was Superintendent sends school committee the evidence of for his evaluation.
Okay.
And then we discussed it at the 20th meeting. But that's the current plan.
We can do that.
Okay. Great. Thank you. So, let's see.
Calendar.
The calendar is under your report as well.
Yeah.
Is there any framing you want to?
I'll just share
Share
that Charlene did the the lion's share of this work. She, called a lot of districts. These were the ones that she thought were salient to the conversation that we've been having here. The procedure for Hopkinton I thought was interesting. It sounded like in conversations that she had with other districts that most of them had some kind of a lot of committees, like a calendar review committee or like a district calendar committee. You can see that she provided an overview, the religious holiday school calendar.
Mm-hmm.
And these are just kind of takeaways from talking to people in these districts.
So yes, Charlene, if you're listening, thank you very much for all the time and effort on this topic, because I know we ended up asking for it a little bit, not out of nowhere, obviously, but it was a substantial amount of work, and I guess I'm just curious. It's been a while, a couple meetings since we were able to discuss this. The other key piece in the folder, in addition to the takeaways from other districts, was this rundown of our own contractual requirements vis-a-vis the calendar, which I think we did not have this in front of us the last time we discussed this topic. Clearly, we do have a lot of actual limitations in terms of like changes that we are currently able to make to the calendar. So that's important context, along with the learnings from other districts that have kind of been through this kind of conversation before us. Just interested to open it up, and we do have vote on our agenda here. We do not need to vote on this tonight. I'll just put that out there. Especially wanting to make sure that Dr. Miranda is able to weigh in on the conversation as well. It might make sense actually to postpone the voting piece of this, but we can just see how the discussion goes. I'm interested in all of your thoughts with the new information that we have.
One thing I'll just add in addition, I thought it was interesting that Brookline has 3 categories of holiday based on school attendance.
Which clearly required a great deal of research on their part or analysis to even arrive at what those tiers are. I know we had that idea sort of, Kate, I think Mark, maybe you brought that up, or somebody was asking about the extent to which students were, and staff for that matter, were taking excused absences on the holidays that are not days off. So that and the Hopkinton, those are 2 approaches that definitely involve a lot of lead time and collaboration.
I mean, the other document, which I believe we shared previously, was the contractual requirements for the school calendar as well.
Right.
And of course, these are for this contract, so these are not immutable.
Yeah, they asked to start bargaining early, so.
Right.
at least we have some latitude to present options and hopefully come up with something that reflects our town.
Cambridge and Westford seem to have very clear procedures for how they
Just
select
so,
Wait, sorry, Val, can you say that
I
again?
say Cambridge and Westford seem to have very clear procedures of how they select which holiday to be off on the school calendar.
So Westford is another example that has this committee. I mean, just to identify, I think that's like an option before us would be to create a committee that would basically create a process for not just, I appreciated that it's not just the approval like of new additions, but it's sort of the goal of staying updated, which, you know, I think we've talked about the ways that we haven't had processes around that piece either in the past here. So that does make sense. I think, you know, if we were to consider creating some sort of a committee, that there is time ahead of the next bargaining cycle to allow a committee to like investigate and present findings that do represent the community that could then inform goals for bargaining or changes that would need to be negotiated. So that, but that would mean, no, wouldn't necessarily mean, but I mean, it might mean, once again, not making any big changes to our calendar for next year. I mean, that's a question that I'm left with then is, would we seek to make an incremental change to our calendar for next year, which quite honestly is all that's available to us given the current commitments that we have around days off that are written into the contract. So would we choose to keep the calendar more or less as is in order to invest time in a more comprehensive process over the next year, resulting potentially in changes to the 2025-26 calendar? I mean, that's just something I'm kind of wrestling with, I guess.
yeah, I still am struggling with just the logistical, what day does Eid fall on? Because it's inconsistent within these documents, right? Hopkinton states clearly it is Sunday, March 30th for next year, whereas Brookline says that it's not.
There are two Eids.
It's on. I think I'm talking about the right one though. Eid al-Fitr. Right? Which I think even in our own conversation,
You're
we
talking
had
about
questions about was it falling on that Sunday or that Monday? March 31st. Yeah, Hopkinton has it on the 31st. On the 30th, but Brookline has it on the 31st. So just the question of timeline and does this actually, I mean, if it falls on a Sunday next year, and the conversations around adding this,
Well, some also add, if they do one of the two, and so if it falls on a weekend,
They
Yes.
take the other one.
they take the other one.
yes, I saw that
Right,
too,
yeah.
but they're not even consistent on which day Eid al-Fitr falls, which seems to be like the primary, and I believe is the request that's in front of us.
Well, I believe Brookline probably moved it to Monday in the same way that you'd have like a 4th of July off on, if the 4th of July is on a Friday, you have, right?
Right.
I believe that's what they did. I'm not positive, but.
So like in Cambridge, this is the idea that the superintendent made the recommendation that one Muslim holiday be added to the calendar.
Yeah, and so if one falls on the weekend,
Yeah.
you get the other one. That's what I read in a few.
Yeah, which is like our current approach to the Jewish high holidays, of having one as a day off, not both. Right?
So it alternates, right? Yom Kippur versus Rosh Hashanah, and one year you
Right.
get one, the next year you get the other.
No, you get, for us,
Yeah, we alternate. We don't always get the same one. Oh, it's the same
we
one?
get Yom Kippur unless it's on a weekend, in which case we get Rosh Hashanah.
Oh, I thought it alternated. Okay. But the idea is it's not just one.
I think it's just only one, because according to the
No, in other words, basically, what he's saying is it's not Yom Kippur every year. If one of them falls on the weekend, you pick the other one. That's not.
I mean, I'll say I like Hopkinton's, the depth of their procedures. I particularly like the Brookline, the different categories. I don't know if, I know we talked about it previously, we excuse absences for religious, cultural holidays, but I don't know if we have anything that states something related to assignments or tests. Is that also within the handbook of like you can't give any student homework or?
I'm not sure it states you can't have any homework. Those students are excused from the homework,
Right.
or can
Yeah.
aren't penalized if they don't get it, and then have extra time to do it.
Yeah, it says
That could be
teachers should
something we
mindful
look at
and
with
accommodative to
some of these other districts. Is there, for example, with Brookline, is there a different approach on those? You know, I guess I was wondering why they have a Category 2 and a Category 3.
Yeah, it's specifically the homework. So category 2, no homework will be assigned in any class for all students on the last day of school before the category 2 holiday.
Yeah.
And then category 3 is, I guess, it seems more aligned with what we currently do. If that individual student's unable to do it, they will be excused.
We just, in our policy right now, we just quote Mass General Law, the relevant section shall be excused from any such examination or study or work requirement shall be provided with an opportunity to make up such examination. So, yeah, so we don't actually have our own language about not offering the exam or homework, what have you. But just that it would be the opportunity to make it up. So
I think the Category 2 is a way to give it more presence in the calendar than what the law provides. Yeah.
So, like, for example, in our, hold on, I have to pull it back up now. In our current calendar, is the tier 2, tier 3, the idea that like we don't distinguish between, for example, I'm not saying this because this is just totally hypothetical, but like Orthodox Easter and Passover like appear next to each other as equivalents here. We don't know actually for our community, are those two on the same tier, or do we have more families celebrating one or the other? Is that's the concept of the tiers between 2 and 3? Is that what you're saying?
I think so.
Like
That's
one
what they
might be
were-
tier 2, one might be tier 3.
Yes, my reading is,
Yeah.
it's all of this is based upon portion of the school population that celebrates or observes those particular holidays. And so category 2, they are defining as saying there's still a significant portion. Category 3 is a small number of people.
Okay.
And category 1 would be the group where like just like, they cannot operate in the school.
So I also liked the Hopkinton procedure. I think it's makes sense to, this kind of is aligned with goals we've set around community engagement in general. I think it's sort of aligned with your approach to incorporating stakeholder perspectives into any changes that are being made.
Yeah, I agree. I like the idea of community engagement on this, to be more broad than just a individual. I think that individual request is a good one, but I think taking that and then allowing us to be kind of have a more broad lens of other things that are being celebrated and not recognized within our process. And or are there any ones that we're currently, in the calendar that could be replaced because demographically the town has shifted from what it was whenever this was started, however many years ago.
Or who even knows like how we arrived at having some of these days off. I mean, on some level we might not necessarily be able to learn that, but we can look at what it means now, what the implications are now. Do people agree that on principle, if we were going to choose to create this committee, which would be an agenda item for a future meeting, to vote upon that as a decision, but this is still part of our discussion of where we're at now with the calendar. If we did move forward with that idea, do you agree that it would then make sense to not move forward with any substantial changes, meaning the addition of a day for next year? Or
Were we going to wait for Selena to be part of this, or we're just going to?
yeah, no, this is just the discussion. We're not like deciding anything, but I'm just curious what you all think about that.
I agree. I think it would be easier or makes more sense when to decide on what we wanted to do first. If we create that calendar review committee and then talk about the procedure of how to categorize each holidays, maybe we do also send out a survey to the staff and the family in the community to collect data on that. So if we decide to go to that path, it would make more sense to just keep everything the way it is for now until we have that final decision after the whole committee agree on.
Yeah, and I think we can decide that when Selena's back at our next meeting too. But I do like the idea of having a process, right? And I think the request from the community member is giving us this opportunity to have this discussion and create a real process on how we move forward. So I think this is all good stuff and lots of great research. So I love it, again, having all of this information right here. And I do also like the category idea. So it's nice to be able to kind of see what other districts have done and just kind of learn from that, what worked, what we didn't, and having all that detailed information from Hopkinton was, having a charter, like what was their goal for that committee, how they went about that process. I think that's helpful to have too. So we can learn from that. So.
And we would, obviously, we're not talking about the ability to form such a committee like in relation to this next year's calendar. This is setting up a longer discussion, but the benefit of that is we would then have time to actually be thorough with it. I do want to just appreciate something you just said, Anna, in terms of just candidly, I feel so conflicted about it. And I do continue to really sincerely appreciate the community members that have been in touch with us, and especially Milton Muslim Neighbors that has really sustained a conversation with us over a period of years at this point. And I do actually think it's meaningful that they've, through their advocacy and their sharing with us, that have actually gotten us to this point of having this much bigger picture conversation, which could actually bring some positive transformation that would really be lasting. So we can keep talking about it. Next meeting, I guess, would be when we would aim to approve the calendar for the planning purposes to move forward on that. But I do think we should also bring back this conversation about a committee then, even though bless you, even though we would have time to kind of formulate and plan for that. I think we should keep them connected, in the discussion. I'm wondering if anyone has any other, I know we've really focused our work on the calendar so far around this question of holidays, but it's also an opportunity to provide feedback or ask questions about the calendar in general, beyond the religious holidays. So does anybody have any other insights or questions as you consider our draft calendar, which, given we're not voting on it tonight, actually that timing could work well because it's still in draft.
I heard a question today. Next year's Christmas is on a Wednesday, so community school have winter camp sections. I'm wondering if the winter camp section is going to open on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Fridays, or because it's right in the middle. So, so I heard that question today, and I'm just puzzling myself too. I don't know.
How does it work? How was it this year?
Usually, is open 4 days of the week.
During
It's usually the 4 days between Christmas and New Year's, I think.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay, so it would be.
So it would be the Thursday, Friday,
Monday,
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Okay.
But I have not talked to the director about that. I'd have to go back and look at last time it was a Wednesday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's usually the 4 days between Christmas and New Year's.
Got it.
In the contract, clearly in the information shared with us about those commitments, we have definitely December 24th as a day off, but December 23rd is not necessary. It's not required to be a day off per the contract.
Right. That becomes the issue when Christmas is a Wednesday. Do you
Right.
what is served by bringing the students in on that Monday and then
Yeah,
giving the
you're
rest of
not
the
gonna-
coffee.
You're not going to get
It'd be like
Right.
12 people in the
10%
building.
of the students coming in.
Right, right.
We're lucky we'll get 12.
Yeah, I think that becomes a Category 1 holiday.
It's really, this is really catching on.
Yeah, I mean, my only further question on the calendar is just, does it provide you and principals and leadership team with kind of what y'all need as it relates to opportunities for professional development, team building, engagement, all those things? And I think we talked about that last time, and the general sense was yes. So,
Yeah.
nice.
Not to say that it's a static thing that we're not going to look at as we go forward. I mean, I think we made a few tweaks from last year to this year. I think we'll dig deeper in the next year after kind of like we're really moving to look at needs. And we have not, in terms of PD and having a cohesive approach, we are not there in terms of elementary to middle to high school. How many days are building-based days, district days? From my analysis, we don't. Principals don't have enough time with their staff to move some of the work. So there are a lot of issues, I think, right now with that wouldn't be solved necessarily by us tweaking this or that. So we have some internal work to do too. So I do think this will be something we continue to kind of look at and design it to meet our ends as opposed to putting in days, so to speak. Putting in time. Design around the need.
I can also just say is there any way we can pretty up the calendar? Out of all the calendars you shared, this looks the roughest.
Which one, ours?
I had mentioned I had
Canva.
I'm like a graphic person too, so
Maybe just
I
like
have
having a
we have a
color scheme.
template that was shared that we could potentially move over, but I know someone too.
Cool. Glad. Excited to see.
Who's working with me on the logos,
That's nice.
who might want to help.
Yeah. I mean, well,
She was giving advice as you were sitting.
I mean, it would be
She's
what would be ideal would be
'Cause
a
it-
template that not like
what would you create it in? Like,
I'm not sure what we
Okay.
created it.
Yeah, I
but
can-
something that we could then manipulate
Edit,
year
yeah.
to year would be awesome. So it wasn't like a one-off. That would be stellar.
yeah.
But yeah, let's.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're
I also like how Westford has its
Is that yours?
it's like it can be a one-pager calendar, but the second page just kind of lays out all this other information, the starting and dismissal calendar schedule, the marking period, end dates, and then where to find information about closings, and then the policy. I think that's kind of nice. People who want to use it as a one-pager can, but I like having all that information in one place too.
yeah.
I think what you're saying about still learning the needs for professional development, I mean, I think that coincides with what we're talking about, a timeline for engaging with the community about the holidays, to the extent that we as a school committee and as a district bargaining team will choose to look at kind of proposing some changes to this to meet the needs of students and families, and I know that's a goal we all share in common across the district. So it would be good to be able to incorporate your learning about how to have professional learning be impactful along with the community's priorities around cultural and religious holidays and so forth. So I guess that could all come together with the timing that we have for negotiations.
May I make a couple comments? May 26th, the words "No School Memorial Day" is kind of like attached to the top. Is it possible to pull it down a little bit? So it's aligned with the day 26th.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. And then
the end of June has a typo.
December 5th is also a PT conference day, but there's only one color, so I'm one of those parents who would miss it. I look at color more than I look at the words. Is it possible to make that day like a slash in a different color? Like you can have the salmon color and the purple.
Which day?
December 5th. Because it's both an
I see what you're
early
saying.
dismissal
Yeah.
and a PT day, PT conference.
Same with November 21st.
Same with November 21st. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so you had missed that one.
Yeah. See? Yeah, I did.
You're a good litmus test.
Once upon a time, they were all, one of those was just parent-teacher conference, and the other was just professional development. But because of the way the marking periods work at the elementary school versus secondary, it didn't work. So the elementary has the earlier, the later parent-teacher conference, and the secondary has the earlier parent-teacher conference. So they got split apart and rearranged a few years back.
Well, I can work on this with Mark if you want.
How are the t-shirts coming?
We're waiting on
We're
the
already
logo.
part of the
I was
branding
told
committee
we're-
over here, so
yeah,
we figured we'd start with this.
Mark was, I feel like, was supposed to be at that meeting, but
And it's funny, I actually asked for like a custom shirt, but I did offer to pay for it. I just
You did
said,
offer
"Can
to
I
pay
get a
for it.
different
That's
one?"
true.
It's all good.
we need to meet again and take the next step.
sure.
Yeah.
I'll be there this time.
All right, well, thank you very much for all the work on this, and thanks
good.
everybody for the good conversation, and we'll just keep talking about it next time. Okay.
Should we then try to get it into a template of some sort with some of the changes that we've talked about for the next review?
You mean the graphic design template?
Yeah, for
I mean,
the for the
but you just have to
approval?
vote on.
Yeah.
We don't need to vote on what it looks like.
I
We just
think,
need to vote on
yeah,
the
I think
dates.
if we just,
Yeah.
I think that's right. I think we can have more time to do the visual piece, and then our goal would be to just approve the
Okay.
actual dates at the next meeting, as well as pick up the conversation about our next steps regarding this committee idea, or what our preferred path is for that. So that will be again next time. Under chair's report, I don't have any additional items. Actually, I guess I could have mentioned that when we were approving our agenda. So I think then I'll just hand it over to Finance, Beverly.
Well, I'm going to ask for a vote, but I won't take a vote because I have an expense reimbursement on this warrant. So may I please have a motion to approve vendor warrant 26 payable on Jan 4, 2024 in the amount of $252,735.65.
So moved.
You have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Thank you.
And you're abstaining.
I'm abstaining.
Okay.
One abstention.
And Dr. Miranda's abstaining. Okay. Are we talking about the budget?
No, we had to cancel the meeting that we had on Wednesday unless there's something you two would like to share.
Is there anything you want to?
Tuesday, not
Well,
Wednesday.
I have finished the second quarter report, and so you'll have that at the next either finance or full school committee meeting, whichever comes first. So I will get that out to you. We have been looking at the fee chart for next year, and talking with various people involved, where I will be proposing a few fee changes. We in some of our rental categories where we haven't altered the fees in quite a while. Doesn't necessarily affect the bottom line of the budget because it just allows us to do more maintenance and so forth. It won't affect the ask for the warrant committee, but I'll be looking at that. The other piece was a minor increase. I noticed that we had not raised preschool tuition rates in about 5 years. And I'm looking at just a token 1% increase or something like that. I believe we should really be making at least a minor incremental increase each year to keep up with the cost of doing business. I think it's nice to leave them flat, but 5 years is a long time to leave them flat. But I'm looking at, as I say, it's about a 1.5% increase. It's not a lot. So I'll bring that forward next time. The other piece we'll be looking at is we've talked about the Welcome to Middle School program. That's about a $75,000 program. We collect about $45,000 in fees to cover it. We pay the rest out of our general fund budget. We've talked about the fact that if that's really a transition to middle school, shouldn't it be required and sponsored by us, or somehow, why are we asking students to pay for that, in a sense? Or is there another model other than a week at the end of June or a week at the end of August to work in a better transition for everybody to transition into middle school? So that, we're not there with a proposal on that yet. That may have the effect of eliminating that fee if we go some other route, but we'll have to look at what the cost of that would be. If it was, for instance, absorbed into the first 2 days of school in the fall for sixth graders or something like that, it might actually be a cost savings because we wouldn't be running the summer programs. Or do we want to do an extra day at the beginning in the fall? We'll have to look at what works. We have to talk more with the middle school principal about it. Best way to try to make that transition, which is not a trivial transition, that 5th to 6th grade. So we want to make sure we do the best work with that. So I'll be bringing forward fee proposal next time. None of these things really should have an effect on the number that we had in our budget for last time for the level service and our needs-based. Those numbers I passed along after our last meeting to Town Hall. We have not yet put together a full document to send to the warrant committee. I reached out to them today to see, to start looking at timelines for when they want to start looking at it and what we're going to basically present to them. I mean, in the past we've done those budget binders. We're trying to be more cognizant of not killing that number of trees. So looking at a way to, give it to them in PDF form or something like that where they can look at it that way.
The budget binder is a PDF? You're mean. No, all jokes aside, that's like, I have perused it on occasion. And some people are text. I don't think we need to print as many, but I do think having a couple of those copies is actually very helpful for those of us who like to.
We're making 35 copies between the board, the select board, the warrant committee, the school committee. It was a lot. And if you like watching us collate and stuff, 30 binders around a table as you walk around, put in this section, then a flipped page, and put in this section 30 times by 10 tabs. It's a fun afternoon, in a weird sort of way. So I'd like to get away from that if we could. So I mean, that's where basically the budget presentation that we gave last time still stands as our number at this point.
And then
We did mention Curry College last time. We are
dual enrollment too.
dual enrollment. We have to look at as well. That's usually not on our fee schedule because, well, first off,
It's new.
So it's new, but you know, like AP courses, fees are set elsewhere. The question is, do we want to subsidize some of that? And we've never put AP fees on our fee chart because we don't set them. But we need to we need to look at that dual enrollment to see how we deal with those issues. Dual enrollment looks like it will expand next year. They're looking at expanding it to English courses as well as math courses, and so part of it is it's going to be very tricky to figure out what the actual cost of it is, because no one needs to declare until April 1st for this year whether they're doing the dual enrollment with Quincy. And so we don't know at this moment how many people are doing dual enrollment this year.
But it's exciting to know that we have it.
Yeah.
I think for anyone to earn college credit while they're in high school at the rates that we charge versus what I paid for college, it's a gift. It's a gift.
So that one needs some more study. We'll hopefully have something for you at the next meeting on that.
Great.
And we are meeting with Curry College again coming up shortly to see how that plays out in terms of the possibility of using their child care center for some of our preschool programs. Now that may have a cost associated with it, because obviously there will be a lease agreement. I've been in touch with town council about how that works, but that the mechanics of that are not awful. We can manage that, but there is the question of what we don't have a number from Curry as to what they would like us to pay yet. That's part of what we have to do, and we have to look at what it means for staffing, because certainly if you're moving our staff over, can our service providers handle that and still without taking them out of the other building, and do we need to add more fractional FTEs of service providers because there's transition time between one school and another and so forth. We'll probably need an administrative assistant over there. And someone's got to watch the door. So I mean, there are some logistics. It's not insurmountable, but we have a meeting coming up in 2 weeks with Curry. So that'll sort of be around the edges of our budget for next year. That may require an amendment at some point or further discussion with the town or something. But we're just not in a position to even make an estimate of what that would be at this time.
Would there be any construction costs, like reconfiguring class?
Well, there may be, but there's also the question of if it's their building, are they paying for it? Are we paying for it? Are we splitting? There's much to be determined in that realm. The devil's in the details. We will see how it plays out. We have nothing really in writing at this point in terms of any of that. The discussions we've had about partnerships with Curry are very encouraging in terms of being able to have our teachers or our educational assistants and do that work there and have their students do student teaching with us, and there's a lot of educational benefits which are sort of easier to sign on to because they don't cost money. My job is to figure out what the money is. So that'll be a while yet, I'm afraid. I don't think that'll be next week because we won't have met with them before our next meeting. But it's still out there. It's not. It's more hopeful than I was a month and a half ago.
And if the deal with Curry College works out, and we were able to move some of our pre-K classes over there, are we still going to reconstruct the whole floor of the Cunningham School?
Again, it will depend on the, what we choose to move and, the programmatic implications of that space at Curry. I mean, what would you put there? Which of it will not be big enough for all of our preschools.
Okay.
I don't believe so.
No, it's not.
So it will need to, some choices will have to be made, and depending on what those choices are, that will, inform what we do in terms of the fourth floor of Cunningham. So it might be a combination of both. That might scale down what we do on the fourth floor of Cunningham. It's impossible to say at this point in terms of, until we get a better programmatic judgment of what we're going to use Curry for, that'll determine, pretty much everything else.
Okay.
So I think that's where we are with respect to those. So
All right.
for the second quarter report and fees, and probably we should have a vote on the numbers for the budget, to, officially request the numbers so they go into the warrant and, table 9 in the back as the request of the school committee is. And we should really do that next time, because we have to get those numbers. I mean, informally, the town has those numbers, but it really does require a vote of the school committee.
Okay, so we can do that next time. We also had the Pierce Site Council. Are they still on track for next time?
And I think the reason why we were waiting for more numbers, because I thought that we were 90% there, but it was the fee schedule. So I think once that's done, we should be able to vote on it, unless you anticipate making any other changes. Is that right?
I mean, the only other thing hanging is Curry, but we may have to do an educated guess, right, in terms of
That's a good start.
projection.
Yeah, that's right. That's reality.
Yeah.
People do it all the time.
Yeah.
But that's probably 2 meetings out,
Yeah.
because we won't know anything more 2 weeks from tonight than we know right now, because the meeting is 2 days after. So.
Would we just vote on an amendment?
Yeah, we would.
Approve it and then.
We would to supplement our request by X dollars.
It's reasonable under the circumstances.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it would be, it would be just a guess at this point. Plus, I wouldn't want to make a guess on what we could pay in advance of Curry telling us what they would like us to pay. It's not a good technique.
I'm sure they're calling through our meeting minutes to find out.
Maybe it's helpful. They've already allocated
No, that's right.
$35.
$34.99.
Sold. There you go.
Okay. All right, great. Well, that's a good bunch of things to talk about next time. I skipped over approval of minutes. Another thing I should have amended at the start, approving the agenda. We don't have a set of minutes to approve tonight, so we're not approving minutes. So is there anything else? All right, well then we can, I guess I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I second.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, great. Happy New Year. We're off to a good start with our short meeting. Set a good tone for the